What, are you kidding me? 56% approval in a brand new Rasmussen poll for President Trump. 56% of the American people think he's doing a great job. That is a landslide. That is awesome. And you consider everything he's up against and everything he's going through and everything that, all the innovation that he's come up with and the constant loud opposition of the media, and his numbers at 56%. You know who that beats? Ronald Reagan at this point in his second term, just 52%. It reminds me, the Gipper and President Trump together. Isn't this an amazing picture? The two of them at some function at the White House. Look at that. We got the 40th president and the 45th and the 47th president all in one spot. It's pretty awesome. So, 56%. That is historic.
Historic. That's the only way to describe it. Trump is crushing it in historic ways. Trump's polls are through the roof. Ironically, at the very same time, his MAGA base is clashing over what to do about Iran. And yet, we're going to find out precisely how the two are related. We're going to look at the polls. We're going to see the latest on the Israel offensive against Iran. And we're going to see how President Trump's policy of strategic ambiguity, write that down. You're going to need that for today's video. Strategic ambiguity is indeed galvanizing both his MAGA base and voters across the country as he carefully threads the needle of the Middle East and beyond. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor. It is my job to help you make sense of the madness. I keep you sane in insane times, so make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss a single episode. As always, we've got a jam-packed show for you today, more than ever for sure. We're going to look in detail at all the different positions that the MAGA faithful are staking over this latest conflict in the Middle East and America's potential involvement in it. So if it all seems confusing to you, especially like the Tucker-Ted Cruz debate, we're going to take a look at that a little bit. If it all seems kind of crazy, well, you've come to the right place. We're going to resolve that craziness for you. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments or your questions. It'd be my privilege to read them out for everybody. If you have questions or comments that you want me to read out loud or answer, you can do that in two ways, either through a one-time gift via our super chats or by becoming a Courageous Patriot Club member, where your one-time monthly gift will enable you to ask me as many questions as you like. So just click on the link below. You'll have instant access to all kinds of exclusive live Q&As and special content. Either way, it'll be my privilege to answer your questions throughout this live stream. Also, I do want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors for today's video, and that is Beam Dream. So I've told you guys about this. I've been using Beam Dream every single night now for months, and I genuinely cannot imagine my nights without it. Before Dream, I don't know, how do I put it? I would just lie awake for hours at night thinking about the future, the news, the world. It was exhausting. I have a hard time turning my brain off. But now, gang, I'm serious. I fall asleep, I kid you not, within about 30 minutes. And I stay asleep throughout the night. I mean, I'm talking a deep sleep, and then I wake up without that foggy, sluggish feeling. In fact, since I began taking Dream consistently, I've noticed a very real difference in my focus, my mood, my energy throughout the day. I mean, you're seeing it in this live broadcast here. Dream is made with top quality, science-backed ingredients that help you relax and get the deep, uninterrupted sleep your body needs. Seriously, I take it every night. It's become a ritual I look forward to each and every night. I love their brownie batter flavor, if I might pick one out for you. And unlike other sleep aids, there's no grogginess the next day, just clear-headed, focused energy. If sleep is something you've been struggling with, and come on, admit it, we all have, I cannot recommend Dream enough. Right now, you can save up to 35% off with my exclusive Beam discount. Just click the link below or scan the QR code and use code Turley at checkout. So don't settle for restless nights. Try Dream now. You will feel the difference. I do it. You're going to love it. Click on that link below. right now. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. So as you just heard, Trump is absolutely crushing it in the polls. Rasmussen's overnight polling on June 18th was simply astonishing. 56% approval, 55.98% to be exact. And it's not just Rasmussen. Insider Advantage, another one of the most accurate pollsters in 2024, they have Trump now at 54% approval. That's a plus 10 over his negative. So this week, we're seeing two of the most accurate pollsters of 2024 showing Trump solidly in the mid to even high 50s, which is incredible given and just our polarized electorate for that. But I mean, think about what's happening in the world today. And for him to have approval ratings that high is pretty astonishing. Now, by contrast, Fox News, freaking Fox, man, talk about a Judas complex. The Murdoch-owned Paul Ryan, Trump-hating Fox News network continues to humiliate itself with its polling. Fox News polling, for whatever reason, has been infamous for years. It's one of the worst. They have like the worst losing streak in terms of any kind of accuracy. They've been relying on this far left pollster for years, again, for whatever reason, but they're actually making the claim that Trump's border security policies barely get a majority support. We have literally brought down illegal border crossings set free into the country to 0 as of May. It's actually gone down 100%. It was over 60,000 this time last year. 0 illegal border crossing releases. And by the way, those releases are generally because of where they're released into custody or they're brought to a hospital or whatever. They've literally brought that 60,000 figure a year ago that Americans were horrified by down to 0, 100% decrease. And Fox News claims you're saying right now, what do you think of Trump's border security policies? 53% support. 53%. Whatever. He's underwater, way underwater in everything else, which is just blatantly untrue. And Trump knows it. He didn't let him get away with it. He's got a bone to pick with Fox. I don't like Fox, I'll tell you that. He took to Truth Social and posted, quote, "The crooked Fox News polls got the election wrong. I won by much more than they said I would." By the way, that is true. And have always been biased against me for years. They're always wrong and negative. It's why MAGA hates Fox News, even though their anchors are great. So Jesse and Laura and even Insanity Hannity. This has gone on for years, but they never change the incompetent polling company that does their work. But Fox will never change this discredited pollster. I mean, and it's true. I honestly don't understand Fox News, other than while they pay lip service to the MAGA movement with these admittedly really cool anchors. In the end, their leadership, right? The Murdoch, the board, their executives, they're all either neocon rhinos or they're actual leftists. I mean, we're talking full-blown lefties here. I'm not half the Murdoch family want to turn Fox into MSNBC once Rupert Murdoch, kicks the bucket. I mean, they're rabid leftists who cheered when Biden, quote unquote, won the 2020 election. So that's the only sense that I can make of it, that there's an inherent sort of cognitive dissonance and an inherent dysfunctionality inside the Fox News corporation, with pro-MAGA forces constantly clashing against pro-establishment rhino neocon forces. Here's President Trump's own assessment of his polling.
So I may have some people that are a little bit unhappy now, but I have some people that are very happy, and I have people outside of the base that can't believe that this is happening. They're so happy. And there was a poll that just came out today that my approval rating's the highest it's ever been. All I'm doing is saying you can't have a nuclear weapon. And I tried to do it nicely, and then on day 61 I said, let's go, because we can't let that happen. And I've been saying it for 20 years. Okay, I'm going to leave. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, as you just heard there, Trump does believe his high approval numbers are a direct result of how he's handling this crisis in the Middle East. And I have to say, I think he's right on that. I think he's absolutely right on that. What I want to do is I want to break that down a bit for us here. I want to lay out for you in almost sort of like a blueprint map-like fashion what President Trump is having to consider in his strategic approach to the Middle East. As many of you know, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt announced yesterday President Trump's intentions at a press briefing. Here's what she had to say.
Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
So that's the official word from the White House. Iran has a fortnight. I love saying that. I love when things are 2 weeks away. I get to use that word. Iran has a fortnight to accept a peace deal and finally give up permanently their nuclear ambitions. There are reports an Iranian delegation is indeed meeting with European leaders as we speak to try to prevent an escalation and come to some kind of peace agreement. In the meantime, the biggest development thus far is that Israeli officials are now openly saying that the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, quote, can no longer be permitted to exist. Those were the exact words of Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz. This after an Iranian missile struck an Israeli hospital, wounding dozens. Israel's openly saying that it is now their intention to take out Khamenei in retaliation. In the meantime, Israel continues to bombard Iran since the assault began 1 week ago. Last night, June 13th, Israeli forces have eliminated a number of key Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders, as well as multiple nuclear scientists. It's been a kill chain. The precision strikes have destroyed the Natanz nuclear facility. They damaged Isfahan's uranium conversion facility. And they've targeted, of course, the underground Fordo enrichment plant. Now, intelligence analysts are revealing that the Ayatollah Khamenei has relocated to a fortified bunker after Israeli airstrikes struck near Iranian command centers. Video forensics of his last June 18th appearance show unusual technical deviations and downgrades in production quality. So that indicates makeshift arrangements far from his usual studio environment. At the same time, we are getting unsubstantiated reports of growing defections from Iran's regular military forces to Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi's opposition movement. But again, I have to underscore these reports have yet to be corroborated. And I want to underscore that we heard reports just like this at the beginning of the whole Russian incursion into Ukraine. We had the ghost of Kiev shooting down all these Russian fighter jets from the air. And we had, Ukraine crushing Russian tanks and all this propaganda that all turned out to be absolute nonsense. Now, I know, again, it's the fog of war. It's the nature of the beast. Propaganda is part of it. It's a land war. It's an information war. But we do have to be careful with assuming the accuracy of the information that's coming out. Obviously, everything you were hearing, particularly on the Murdoch news networks about Ukraine winning, were not true. They were not true. 20% of Ukraine now belongs to Russia. It's the most fortified position in the country, or fortified position in the world today. Russia's military is more powerful than it's ever been, and its economy is booming. So sorry, it's just none of it was true. Now, the key here, of course, is that now all eyes are on President Trump. What is the United States going to do? And the bottom line is no one knows. Bottom line, no one knows. Precisely because that's the way Trump wants it. It's what analysts are calling Trump's strategic ambiguity, which in effect keeps the enemy guessing. It keeps other geopolitical actors like Russia and China on the world stage off balance. But ultimately, in an effort to create the space and the conditions needed for negotiations so as to reach a peaceful settlement, while at the very same time taking a very, very tough stance. So Trump's recent Truth Social post cut to the heart of the matter. He said, quote, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention on this matter." Now, what's so interesting with that post, we talked about this the other day, is that that's not reckless rhetoric on the part of Trump that some liberal Democrats, which notice how quiet Democrats have been of late. I mean, the Democratic Party right now, I know we have to do another video on this, but the Democrat Party is basically imploding. The DNC is like bankrupt as we speak. Interesting how we defund USAID and all of a sudden the DNC is bankrupt. Very interesting, right? They're borrowing money. They're in total debt. Democrats have nothing to say about what's happening here. They don't even know what to say. And all of their, protests and riots are they're all fizzling out. They're a party that's literally imploding, but we've got bigger fish to fry here than mocking and ridiculing these moronic Democrats. But bottom line, strategically, this ambiguity on Trump's part and the tweet like this or a Truth Social post like this, it's calculated psychological warfare. So for example, in this case, by publicly acknowledging that America could eliminate Khamenei at its choosing, but is choosing not to, Trump accomplishes really three strategic objectives. He demonstrates American power without immediately escalating the conflict. He creates internal paranoia within the Iranian leadership. They're going to come and kill us or what, And he establishes clear red lines while maintaining flexibility. I can do this anytime, and I will make the decision of when I'm going to do this. So you better rein it in. No attack on civilians, no attack on American soldiers. That's his policy strategic ambiguity. Victor Davis Hanson, the war historian and social commentators, talked about this. So Trump believes that public predictability is dangerous. I know a lot of geopolitical analysts want him to be very clear right now and are very frustrated over him not being. But that Hansen argues that's because Trump does believe that public predictability is dangerous. Trump sees unpredictability. Trump sees even volatility as representing the safer strategic course. The tactical approach, again, involves three things: multiple solutions, right? You'll notice that Trump offers various possible resolutions to international crises. He never says here's how we resolve this, and it's one way and one way only. He might say there's only one outcome that I want, but we can do that in multiple ways. So he has multiple offerings on the table. Secondly, he gives flexible deadlines. He issues both rhetorical and ironclad ultimatums. And then third, he does this sort of alternating personas. So he switches back and forth between being diplomatic and hawkish as the situation evolves. It's very similar to how he's been handling the ongoing tariff negotiations. But this unpredictability is designed to confuse enemies and creating strategic uncertainty that can prevent adversaries from calculating optimal responses. And what's so interesting here is that for us, ambiguity is such a perfect term for those of us, right, confronting all this MAGA turmoil. So I'm sure many of you are just scratching your heads trying to make sense of all the conflicting messages that are coming in from conservative and MAGA influencers. Some are all for a strike against Iran. Some believe it's the end of Trump's presidency, and it's coming back and forth. I mean, we saw it most recently and most explicitly in microcosm form in the Tucker interview with Ted Cruz where two Republican stalwarts went at it for over an hour. Here's a little excerpt from that.
Asking about your allegation and the Prime Minister of Israel's allegation that
let me be clear,
Iran
I'm
is trying to
emphatically for
murder
killing
the
our
president.
enemies. Killing terrorists is a good thing. Killing people who are trying to murder Americans is a good thing. Because if you're America first, you want to protect America. And so killing Osama bin Laden was a fantastic
But you don't
day
really
for the
believe
world.
that they're trying to murder Trump, or you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Then why aren't you calling for military action against Tehran right now?
Because they're not very effective. In terms of hitmen, their hitmen are not very effective. I do think...
So they're hitmen, but not the bad kind, the efficient kind?
No,
what are you saying?
They're a weak country who is on its knees, and I think we need to...
Then why are we so afraid of them? Why are they the biggest threat if they're a weak country that's on its knees?
Because they're trying...
I'm trying to keep track.
They're trying to develop... Be a little less snarky.
I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. Snarky Tucker. So as you could tell from that snippet, Cruz is very much pro-confrontation with Iran via U.S. troops. Tucker, by contrast, is radically skeptical of it, and especially the nefarious foreign influences that are pushing America towards war, a war that, according to Tucker, nobody wants. I mean, think about it. Literally just 8 days ago, all eyes were fixed on the big, beautiful bill in the Senate, right? Where's that been for the last week? When's the last time you heard about the big, beautiful bill? It's gone. Well, ironically, what we're going to find out is that there's actually a connection between the big, beautiful bill and U.S. involvement in Iran. What I want to do here is I want to map out for you, for lack of a better term, both sides, as it were. Again, just in general terms, those who are MAGA faithful, who are on the one side arguing for confrontation with Iran, and those MAGA faithful on the other side who are arguing that we need to stay out of this. This is Israel's war, not ours. And I want to map out for you both these positions as I understand it. And then I want to show you how Trump is actually navigating both sides, and he's threading the needle very carefully here, and I would argue very effectively, which at least to an extent, I think explains why we're seeing such strong polling right now. MAGA is largely very happy with the way Trump is handling this very concerning development in the Middle East. Now, I think you're going to be very, very interested to see how it's working itself out. But first, if you are just joining us, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Let us know what you think by either sending us a super chat or by clicking on the link below and joining our Courageous Patriot Club member. For just a single monthly fee, you can be part of thousands of patriots that hang out and chat and talk about building a parallel economy of faith, family, and freedom, and a new American civilization of flourishing patriotic values and so forth. What I'll do is I'll feature your comments on our broadcast. You can ask me as many questions as you like if you join. I'll be happy to answer them on the live stream. So just click on that link below, or you join fight.turleytalks.com/join to become a member, or just send us a super chat. Either way, it'd be great. Also, have you noticed every time Trump's name surges in the headlines, gold goes up with it? It happened the very day he took office, and it's still going up. Gold doesn't just like Trump, it loves him. It rallies around him. If you bought gold the day he became president, you'd be up almost $400 an ounce by now. It's really no surprise. Under Trump's first term, the price of gold over those 4 years soared a staggering 53%. He's even talked about the U.S. going back to a gold standard. Here's the thing, gang. Gold has been used as a store of value for centuries. The government can't easily manipulate it, and it's known as a hedge against market risk and inflation. How high will the price of gold go under Trump's second term? Will gold continue to break record after record in 2025 and beyond? Well, you can learn more about the benefits of precious metals like gold and silver with your very own absolutely free copy of the Gold and Silver Kit sent directly to your doorstep. You even learn about an IRS loophole that allows you to diversify your savings with gold and silver, completely tax and penalty free. So don't wait a second longer. Click that link below and get your hands on your free copy of this gold and silver kit and start your gold and silver journey today. All right. So what I want to map out for you are three views, actually, three regarding U.S. intervention in Iran. All right. So as I'm mapping these out, I came up with terms. We can change them as we go along. Let me know if you like better terms in the comments, or you super chat me or whatever. But the first group I'm calling the hawk group. Okay, so these are the interventionists. These would be the Ted Cruzes. The second group I'm calling the dove group. Okay, this is the dove view, the non-interventionist position. And then I do want to take a look at a third, a larger view, which is the geopolitical view. This is the more international view. This is coming from genuine geopolitical analysts like John Mearsheimer, Jeffrey Sachs, Colonel Douglas McGregor, Alex and Alexander at the Duran. And what I'm hoping to show you here by mapping all of these three positions out for you, so as to clarify any confusion you have with regard to where everyone's coming from, what I'm hoping to do is actually show you, I'm going to close the loop here. I want to show you how Trump is effectively navigating these three views in his policy of strategic ambiguity, which is at least in part resulting in these amazing poll numbers. So let's start with the hawk view, the pro-interventionist side of things. So those who want the United States forces in some way, shape, or form to engage in Iran. Now, I'm not talking about the Lindsey Grahams. I'm not talking about the neocon rhino types who are writhing for regime change. Yes, they're going to be factored in here in a moment. I will factor them in. But I want us to understand primarily the different MAGA perspectives, right? Trump, by the way, has, at least thus far, he's ruled that out. He is not going the way of the neocons. He's not going regime change. Instead, I'm talking here more about the views, well, like you'd be hearing from Victor Davis Hanson or Laura Loomer. She gave a very passionate apologetic for this on the Tim Pool show of late. Wayne Allen Root, good friend to this channel, who's been on several times, has given a passionate apologetic for why the United States should strike Iran. So these are the MAGA faithful, okay? I'm not talking about rhinos. The MAGA faithful who nevertheless see and advocate for a very strong case that can be made for U.S. military intervention in Iran. It's up to you to determine whether or not they can be both. Can they be MAGA faithful and also advocate for this intervention? The central strategic issue for the hawks revolves around Iran's deeply buried nuclear facilities at locations like Fordow. There are various options for destroying these facilities. That can include Israel's smaller bunker buster bombs. But many experts believe those smaller bunker buster bombs are incapable of reaching the depth needed to take out those facilities. And the argument here is that really, in the end, only the United States 30,000-pound bunker busters can ultimately do it. And they're so heavy, by the way, as I understand, B-2s can only carry 2 at a time. It's pretty astonishing. And then the argument is, so that's the first point. That's the bottom line. Only the United States can ultimately accomplish this goal of a nuclear-free Iran. Bottom line. Second, there's never been a better time to do it than now. If ever there were a time to do it, it is now. And that is largely because all of Israel's regional proxies have been neutralized or radically weakened. So we're talking Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen. As we found over the last week, Iran is radically limited in the regional retaliation that it can muster, at least short term, against Israel, and then by extension, the United States. Now, for Trump, they would argue that this fits very well with his first term foreign policy, what some are calling a Jacksonian foreign policy, which is characterized by a focus on national interest, a preference for unilateral action. He's not interested in getting in all these international treaties or anything like that. Unilateral action and a willingness to use force when provoked in a very decisive, overwhelming, but limited way. That's his Jacksonian foreign policy. So if you recall, in Trump's first term, he engaged in systematic bombing operations that effectively destroyed ISIS together with Putin in Russia. He confronted Kim Jong-un's nuclear provocations and got him to stand down. And he actually involved the United States military in targeting eliminations, like killing General Soleimani of Iran, the ISIS leader al-Baghdadi, and even Russian Wagner Group forces in Syria. So this strategy involves decisive action when American interests are directly threatened, but avoids prolonged nation-building commitments, regime change, all the insanity that the neocons are craving for. And so with that first-term Jacksonian precedent, proponents of striking Iran are arguing that this is simply an extension of that. This affords Trump the same opportunity here to, in effect, make the world a better place. This is the first and perhaps only real chance at regional normality in nearly 50 years to bring the Iranian regime that hates us and chants death upon us to heal. So this is the moment where we have a chance to wipe out any possibility of Iran ever acquiring a nuke. And for the sake of a better world, we'd better take advantage of it because we're not going to get this opportunity again. So as I understand it, that is the basic argument that you're hearing from the MAGA faithful who are proponents of striking Iran. Now, on the other side of the aisle is what I'm calling the doves, for, again, lack of a better term. And I'm including here, of course, people like Tucker, the arguments I've heard from Tucker, from Steve Bannon, Robert Barnes, who has been very passionate, very brilliant, as always, in his articulation of this, Rich Barris of the People's Pundit, Jack Posobiec, all the big populist voices out there, they are dead set against this. And the bottom line, it's because they don't buy any of it. They don't buy any of it. They are sick of the neocon obsession with the Middle East, and they are very concerned that another war will destroy the MAGA coalition. In a nutshell, big picture, I think that's a pretty faithful overview, aerial view of what they're arguing. They don't buy anything coming out of the lips of these neocons, out of the military-industrial complex, out of the CIA. They don't buy any of it. It's WMD's 2.0. We don't buy it. And we are sick of you finding another excuse after excuse of drawing everyone's attention away from our falling apart country and diverting it over and distracting us over into a land 10,000 miles away. And on top of that, to make it even worse, it's going to destroy probably the most powerful political coalition we have seen in a generation. So for the evidence for it, it's true. Poll after poll does show. I know Fox is putting up, and CNN talking about how everyone's also, but no, the more accurate pollsters I've showed these polls over the course of this past week in several of our videos. Poll after poll shows support for more Middle Eastern wars is at an all-time low. It's not high. And I'm not talking about, it's not Democrats, but among Republicans, independents, veterans, younger voters, even evangelical support for Israel is slipping. And among working class voters, the appetite for war is completely gone. It's not there. And by the way, who's at the heart of the MAGA movement? Who's at the heart of the new Trump coalition? Working class voters. They don't want this. They want tariffs. Isn't that interesting? Whatever the working class wants, the legacy media piles on, saying, oh, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. That's terrible. That's a horrible policy, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the working class is dead set against, the media class is like, yeah, this is great. This is the best thing. Interesting how that happens, isn't it? So fundamentally, these doves, as I'm calling them, non-interventionists, are concerned about what some are calling the boomer-con fantasy. Please do not take offense to this, my fellow, or I'm not quite a boomer. I'm an Xer. Just by, not by too much, just by a few years. But they're calling it the boomer-con fantasy. And that's the idea that all conservatives still want to police the world, that the Fox News viewers are itching for another war, and that criticizing Netanyahu or the Israeli government makes it some kind of radical or anti-Semite, as Cruz was accusing Tucker of being. What this side argues, the Dove side, is that era is over. The unipolar world of 2002, where America was responsible for what happens 10,000 miles away from us, right? Those days are over. Those sentiments are gone. The data is clear. Support for Israel is now net negative in the United States, even among young Republicans. The only group still clinging to the old ways are the over 65 crowd glued to cable news. That's the argument. I'm just giving you the argument. Don't shoot the messenger. But the vast majority of MAGA, Trump's base, so the working class, young voters, disaffected, they want America first. They don't want Israel first. They want peace, prosperity. They want their sons and daughters home, not fighting and dying for another failed regime change operation. And they're not fooled by the recycled talking points from 2002 that if we don't do this, we're all going to die. They see Iran's nuclear weapons program as the new WMD scare tactic. And look how that turned out in Iraq. Trillions upon trillions of dollars wasted and over 4,000 U.S. soldiers dead. And what are we seeing now, particularly on Fox? The same deep state neocon voices who lied to us, who lied us into Iraq, they're back, whispering like worm tongue in the president's ear, insisting that this time is going to be different. They're pushing regime change in Iran, just like they did with Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi or Assad. They're flooding the airways with the experts and the analysts who never admit their past failures and never pay a price for being wrong. But here's the truth, as far as the doves are concerned. Here's the truth. Every time America's gotten involved in a Middle Eastern war, public support has collapsed within a year or two. Every time. You can add Vietnam to that. You can add Korea to that. But Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, all started with high approval, all ended up in disaster and political blowback. And so that's the real danger for Trump. If Trump takes the bait and gets America into a war with Iran, it will destroy his coalition. The same voters who propel him to victory as the peacemaker will abandon him. The economic fallout, especially from spiking oil prices, it'll unravel everything he's built on lowering inflation and the cost of living. And the Democrats are already in the shadows, preparing to run as the anti-war party if Trump gets dragged into this. And guess where the working class is going to go back to? Again, this isn't speculation. This is history repeating itself. George Herbert Walker Bush won the Gulf War with like a 90% approval rating. Months later, he lost re-election in an absolute embarrassment. LBJ's Vietnam disaster handed the White House to Nixon. Truman's Korean War handed power to Eisenhower. Wars drain political capital. They destroy domestic agendas, and they turn winning presidents into losers literally overnight. So as far as these guys are concerned, what they're arguing is, hey, let's all focus on what real America first looks like. It means learning from the past. Eisenhower got us out of Korea. Nixon got us out of Vietnam. Reagan pulled us out of Beirut. Trump in his first term did not start. Yes, there were some interventions, but he did not start a single new war. And he tried to get us out of the old ones. That's why he won. That's why he built a new coalition. And that's why the establishment is so desperate to drag him back into the old playbook. And what are they using as collateral? What are they using as bait, as it were? They're using the big, beautiful bill, bait, collateral, let's just say it, as blackmail. The Senate neocons, which are virtually all the Republicans in the Senate, there are House of Lords. They are the establishment Republicans par excellence. It's the House that's more populist. It's the Senate that's still fully swampy establishment. They are demanding that Trump get involved in this Israel-Iran war to prop up their military-industrial complex donors and stocks and keep America's dominant place in the Middle East with all that oil flowing from it. Or else, you better get us involved in this, or else you can kiss that big, beautiful bill goodbye. So, bottom line, the Doves are just as skeptical about Iran's nuclear capabilities as they are, in hindsight, about the supposed WMDs in Iraq. And they believe that war, if history is precedent here, that war with Iran will destroy that MAGA coalition that represents the current and future political majority in our nation. So the lesson is clear here. Do not trust the same voices who lied to us beforehand. Don't take the bait. Don't let America get trapped in another endless war for someone else's agenda. So that, to me, I think I'm being faithful on both sides. I hope I remember I try to pride myself in descriptive rather than prescriptive analysis, right? Not what ought to be, what is. That's what helps us make sense of things in this crazy world. But that is the dove and the hawk positions, respectively, coming from MAGA. Now, on top of that, one final analysis, and then I want to turn this over to you. There's the geopolitical analysis, the wider, and it's putting what's going on in our nation and sort of our domestic debates in a wider geopolitical focus. So this is where we look at the analysis of theorists like John Mearsheimer, the University of Chicago, Jeffrey Sachs, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a number of Alex and Alexander at the Duran. They've been wonderful. Glenn Deason. They're coming at this from a very different vantage point in terms of the geopolitics of the situation, and it's very complex. I'm just trying to put it all in a nice little sandwich for little tiny sandwich bites for us. But what's so interesting here, and what I found fascinating, is how the geopolitical analysts are equally as skeptical about the Iranian nuclear weapons claim as are the Doves. So there is some key overlap there in terms of the mapping out, right, of the different positions. So there is some overlap, and that's what I'm always looking for whenever I'm doing analysis, is if you've got like 3 or 4 different positions, where do they overlap? I don't want to get into the, what was our cackles, Kamala, and the Venn diagram. I like those circles, what they kind of overlap. But those overlaps are important because they're starting to show consensus. They're starting to show how people coming from different vantage points are seeing the same thing. And that, from a critical realist perspective, that's good. That means generally, not always, but it means we might be onto something here in terms of what's really happening. So they're just as critical. They don't buy the nuclear weapons excuse because, again, this is an excuse that's been cited over and over again, particularly by Bibi Netanyahu, since the 1990s, since the early 90s. And we've been hearing it literally every couple of years. They're just a few months away. They're just a few months away. Enriching uranium, just a few months away, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And now what they're saying in the sky is falling kind of the Chicken Little sort of sense is, no, but this time it's real. So instead, what a number of analysts are arguing is it's not nuclear weapons capability that's sort of initiated this latest conflict. Instead, they're pointing to something called the clean break strategy. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen this. You can look it up. We should have a, there we go. Yeah, you can look it up on Wikipedia. It's called A Clean Break, New Strategy for Securing the Realm. This was devised back in 1996, about 5 years after the Soviet Union fell. Benjamin Netanyahu and a number of American advisors wrote this plan called the Clean Break Strategy. Now, this is very important. And so to me, when we were analyzing what was going on with Russia and Ukraine, I thought it was very important for us to go back to, if I recall, it's the 2007 Munich speech that Putin gave, where he told NATO, it was before NATO officials, that there was a very hard red line in terms of their eastward expansion of NATO. This is back in 2007. There was a very hard line that he's drawing between NATO and Ukraine. And if you cross it, you're going to force us to act. So at the Munich Strategic Conference back in 2007, we can find a very fixed historical point for what was happening as of February of 2022. This clean break strategy is similar to that. If you want to know what is going on in the Middle East over the last decade or so, a lot of it goes back to this. It was a plan basically, it's basically there to redraw the Middle East. And it's very aggressive. It sees all Muslim Arab nations as enemies, primarily, and the redrawing of the Middle East would be through regime change, through political assassinations, and through virtually endless conflict. But the goal in all of this was to make Israel the unchallenged power in the region, with America more or less footing the bill and fighting the wars, so that we could have a proxy influence via Israel as the dominant power in the region. And keep in mind now, 1996, this is the height of the Frank Fukuyama end of history paradigm, right? So this is the precursor to George Bush's pacification of the Middle East program. So this is a very different world. And again, if you're taking notes here, the Frank Fukuyama end of history thesis basically argued that all political and economic systems all over the world, all over history, were all ultimately converging into liberal globalism. It was inevitable. It was just a matter of time before it would happen. So it's a kind of reverse Marxism. So instead of getting a Marxist utopia, you're getting basically a liberal globalist utopia. And then what you got were the neocons, the rise of the neocons. And the neocons basically argued, if the arc of history is moving towards the liberal globalist political and economic system, why wait? Why wait for it? Let's make it happen. Let's force history's hand. So that's how you're using that kind of military sort of idea. So this is a very different world from the one we're living in now. This is back just a few years after the fall of the Soviet Union. But nevertheless, you'll notice that 6 out of the 7 countries targeted for regime change. Oh, Micah, by the way, that's the John Mearsheimer reference. And I mean, there you go. Yeah, just keep it on there. You'll notice 6 out of the 7 countries that they targeted for regime change in the clean break strategy: Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, and Libya have all been radically destabilized. And what's the final target? It's Iran. Iran, after years of covert operations, assassinations, economic warfare, now the United States is being pushed to basically finish the job. So this is what Jeffrey Sachs in particular has been arguing. Bottom line, every time you hear self-defense or weapons of mass destruction or nuclear threat, remember, it's the same script recycled for a new audience, but ultimately all going back to the clean break strategy of the early 90s or mid 90s, I should say. It's all ultimately about expanding Israel and the United States' influence in the region. And all these pretexts, WMDs, Iran's nuclear facilities, whatever they are, they're all there to justify the violence required to expand that influence. As far as geopolitical analysts like John Mearsheimer are concerned, they agree. They see Israel, specifically Netanyahu. He's not interested in taking out nuclear facilities. He's trying to reshape Middle Eastern dynamics by deliberately drawing the United States deeper into this conflict so as to make Israel the number one undisputed power in the region. And Mearsheimer's thesis is predicated on a problem that Israel is going through right now. And that is the collapse of Israel's strategic doctrine of escalation dominance. Again, that's something you might want to write down just to keep in mind as we're trying to understand all the dynamics behind this. It is, the term is escalation doctrine. So thus far, Israel, and we've all seen it firsthand, well, mediated to us and so on, but Israel's responded to attacks by Hamas and Hezbollah over the years with disproportionately greater force. This is why the UN always comes cracking down on Israel, because Israel uses such disproportionate force in its retaliation. But it does so strategically, in fairness to Israel. And the strategy is it deters further aggression from Hamas and Hezbollah, and that has worked. When Hamas and Hezbollah get itchy for a fight, Israel pounds them and they stop. They completely deter any further retaliation. Okay, so that's this escalation dominance strategy that they have used. As long as this approach has historically served Israel, they've been able to stop. They've been able to stop the conflicts. What Mearsheimer is noting is that since October 7th, we have noticed that this doctrine of escalation dominance has failed. It's not working anymore. It's not shutting down the conflicts. And they're in multiple fronts. They've got Gaza. They've got Lebanon. And that signals a fundamental shift in regional power dynamics that undermines Israel's traditional deterrence strategy. In fact, frankly, their only ultimate deterrence strategy. And without that deterrence strategy, Israel becomes very, very vulnerable. And that vulnerability is playing out in this multi-front war against Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And this multi-front war is simply unsustainable for Israel. It's a strategic overextension that Israel cannot resolve through military means alone, since the escalation dominance no longer works. And so a key way out of this is to bring in another actor who can provide precisely that kind of escalation dominance. And that, of course, for Israel is the United States. So how does Israel bring the United States into their war? How does Israel draw the United States into this conflict that they're finding is unsustainable and they can't get out of? By getting Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation. By getting Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation to Israel, which would in turn trigger what's called the Carter Doctrine and draw U.S. forces into this conflict. So the Carter Doctrine states 1980s, is just months after the Ayatollah Khamenei took power. The Iranian theocracy took power, and they were threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, where 30%, if I recall, 40%, as much as a daily oil deliveries goes through. It's this tiny little, little canal, as it were, a strait. And Carter said, "You shut that down, we're going to consider that an act of war." And then it allows the military, the U.S. military, to respond by all means necessary to open up that strait again. So how do you get Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz? In retaliation, you attack them. And that's that for John Mearsheimer is the whole geopolitical chess match that's actually being played out right in front of our very eyes. So with these three maps before us, the hawks, the doves, and the geopoliticians, what is Trump doing here? Ironically, the ambiguity of this conflict, right? Ambiguity refers to multiple different options. The ambiguity of this conflict is playing right into the hands of Trump's strategic ambiguity. Trump appears to be accurately threading the needle by pleasing the hawks in giving the green light to Israel to take out much of Iran's defensive and military infrastructure, which, if the reports are accurate, they are doing, while at the same time pleasing the doves, the non-interventionists, by thus far keeping the United States out of it and providing only defensive support for Israel's opposition or operation. Trump has also brought in U.S. naval and air power into the region so as to basically prevent Iran from even thinking about closing the Strait of Hormuz. And he appears to be opposing the regime change that Netanyahu and the neocons have been craving for the last 30 years, thus showing he is not getting sucked into this neocon Frank Fukuyama end of history plan for the Middle East. He's not interested in it at all. So at this point, Trump is basically telling Israel, dudes, you got to finish the job you started. United States will protect you. We will be defensive in the process. But this way, Trump's long-stated goal of annihilating Iran's nuclear ambitions is achieved. But while at the same time, his goal of keeping America out of any prolonged foreign wars, particularly those planned out over the last 30 years by the neocons, is at the same time maintained. That is his strategic ambiguity in a nutshell. And it looks like voters are approving him precisely for that. Over to you. Boy, I talked a lot today. We started late today. Sorry, perfection cannot be rushed. I'm sorry, guys. As Micah, our producer, assembles your questions and your comments, you know, we're not just fighting an information war. There's another war that's happening that many of us don't know about, and it's in our guts. There's a battle between good and bad bacteria going on inside you right now that can determine the health for the whole of your body. And here's how you're going to win that battle. Kimchi One from Bright Core Nutrition is the fermented superfood your body needs to arm the good guys with the right weapons to defeat the bad actors once and for all. All health starts in the gut, so putting the right fermented superfood in your gut improves every aspect of your health, your heart, your brain, even the quality of your skin, the growth of your hair. Containing over 900 strains of beneficial bacteria in each capsule, Kimchi One supports healthy digestion, fortifies your immune system, and it helps detoxify your body. Kimchi has also been shown to reduce risk of obesity and promote smaller waistlines by curbing appetite, naturally boosting your metabolism. Kimchi One's all natural, it's non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made right here in the USA. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below. Just use code TURLEY for 25% off your entire order, or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-897-0233. That's 888-897-0233. All right, what do we got, Micah? What do we got? Maximilian, great to hear from you again. How do we know that we're right and our enemies are wrong when the elites, especially intelligentsia, are so overwhelmingly against us. Phenomenal question, Maximilian. And you know, again, I took a lot of heat for this in the outbreak of the Russian incursion into Ukraine in February 2022, when I basically said what you're hearing on Fox is BS. It's nonsense. It's not. That's not. Putin wasn't bored. Kicking puppies wasn't enough for him one day, so he just decided to go and invade Ukraine. Or Putin misses. He is so nostalgic for the Soviet Union. He wants to put the Soviet Union back together again. Or, you know, regionally and geopolitically, Russia can't survive without annexing Ukraine. All this stuff we were hearing is all nonsense. Again, the irony is they couldn't point to a single policy that Putin had ever said, outside of once saying that the loss of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Soviet Union, was the worst crisis of the 20th century. What they don't do is they don't quote the next sentence, because it left the Russian people suddenly vulnerable and unprotected to radical nationalist sentiments throughout the old Russian satellite states. So, I mean, he said it wasn't because the Soviet Union was so great. It was because the Russian people in those nations were suddenly treated to extremely racist sentiments and policies. So it had nothing to do with rebuilding the Soviet Union. So, okay, that's a setup. But how do we trust our? So for me, Maximilian, it's doing exactly like what we just did now. It's mapping out all the different positions that you're hearing out there. So you have to do some research here, and hopefully that's where content creators like yours truly comes in a service to you. But you map out all the different opinions out there, and then what you try to do is you do a bit of a Venn diagram. You see where they overlap. So for me, what I found so fascinating is how the geopolitical perspective does overlap considerably with the Dove perspective. Geopolitical perspective generally doesn't buy this. They don't buy Netanyahu. They don't buy like a greater Israel. They don't buy the nuclear capabilities argument. They see it more as the attempt to create a greater Israel, at least in terms of the uncontested dominant influence in the Middle East. And Iran is the principal power that stands in the way of that. So I just look at where you're seeing overlap, and then based on your logical consistency, empirical adequacy, experiential relevance, these sort of three tests for truth, you apply that to the various different views, and particularly the overlap, and you just try to stay with the most consistent arguments. And generally, you're going to arrive at a pretty accurate conclusion. So that would be my advice. Sean, Dr. Steve, your video yesterday shows the shaved-head obese land walrus. You like that? That was for fun. I had to have a little, in these crazy times, I had a little fun. There we have a video called "When Trucks Don't Stop for Protesters." Anyway, Dr. Steve, your video yesterday shows the shaved-head obese land walrus trying to stop an ICE bus. Your typical Democrat feminazi, for those in Rio Linda, with the utter messianic attitude, yelling, "Let my people go." You caught that. There is a religious element to this stuff. Very good. You caught that. Your video showed that they're the ones who are truly in a cult. They're the ones that are truly mentally ill, and they're the ones that truly look at anyone coming into this country illegally or legally as subhuman, to be subservient to their system. Very, very interesting. Oh, that's cool. That's very, very cool. People go, I'd have to think about that. I mean, I think you're right. I think they're very anti-human in many respects, because again, they don't even know, they're very confused about gender. Obviously, they're going to be confused about humanity, because gender is intrinsic to our humanity. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the point of that video was to show the insanity that they were willing to go to, precisely because of their sense of moral superiority, so that they were willing to put us through ordeals that they themselves would never want to go through in an ordinary situation. They wouldn't want somebody cutting them off, on Route 95 or something like that. Let alone a bunch of protesters standing in front of their car, impeding them from getting to work. So they're willing to impose upon others antics that they themselves would be offended by, but because they think they're morally superior. So there is this malignant narcissism that's really at the heart of it all. And then, the let my people go thing is it's just incoherent. It's absurd. It's insane. I guess it's a Marxist notion of the fraternity of the oppressed. But outside of that, it's a pure insanity. I think she just demonstrated that insanity in every way. And it also showed that particularly middle America, working class America, they've had enough. They're done with it. The left assumed that we were going to tolerate their antics in perpetuity because they're just so morally superior. But now the moral superior thing to do is not allow them to get away with it. I'll just say it that way. TM series model number 5, code name ROT Corp. Dr. Turley, I'm struggling to believe all the craziness in the world now. Trump's approval rating is still this high. Is there possibly something that we're missing? I'm assuming most of the MAGA movement is perfectly fine with what Trump is doing right now, but just waiting to see if he crosses that line, attacks Iran, then they'll stop supporting Trump as much. And that's the concern. Yeah, that's very good, TM. That is the concern that, well, again, all I can do is just, I have to be objective here. So when you look at two of the most accurate polling outlets of 2024, they are showing Trump at record high polling. But how long will that continue, especially if he ends up attacking? That's a whole nother story. What Barnes being the most accurate pollster of 2024, who has talked with these voters every single day of his life for 10 years, what they're saying is that this really risks destroying the MAGA coalition in a very, very real way. So could this be the calm before the storm? We'll have to see. I certainly, if Trump just does another Soleimani, where he sends in a missile, bunker buster, and that's that, and there's really not that much Iran can do, he'll be a hero. The concern is that Iran will see this as a total existential threat, which they did not see with Soleimani, and it will be an existential threat to their very survival. And they will attack wildly. Then we're in. We can't. So in order to prevent that, President Trump can't just take out the bunker. Right? These aren't just bunker busters being 30,000-pound bunker busters being sent in. He's going to have to take out the whole of Iran's capability of responding, of retaliating, or else we're going to get dragged into the war. But you can't do that without officially, in effect, having war declared on you by a sovereign nation. And then I don't know, how do you get a war declared on you by a sovereign nation, not get dragged into it? Ask Israel. So this is why I'm hoping this fortnight is going to be a time of extraordinary negotiation and diplomacy. That's what I'm hoping for. So, but I mean, right now, the numbers don't lie. He's doing very, very well right now. And I think it's because of this strategic ambiguity. People support him in not wanting Iran to have a bomb, but they do not want the United States to get involved. Right. So how can you work that out? Those are the cards you've been dealt. The original rock dog, Dr. Steve. So, do you believe I nailed it with a question on Monday about what Trump will do with Iran? That the strategy all along has been no nukes and no sanctions and welcome back to the rest of the world, signing the Abraham Accord, maybe. That's what I am hoping for, my friend. That is what you will have to have a special like rock dog medal or a special rock dog award for people if they are able to predict something like that far ahead, because that's pretty good. That's a lot of geopolitical steps that you would have had to have predicted correctly. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, delegations apparently are being met 2 weeks. Oh, again, we'll see. Again, this is part of the strategic ambiguity. We don't know, but that is definitely what Trump seems to be wanting. It's stick and carrot. The stick is Israel, and the carrot is the United States. That's the irony. The carrot is the United States. Israel wants to turn us into a stick in order to bring about the escalation dominance, but restore the escalation dominance. But Trump appears to be trying to position the United States into an incredibly fierce stick if put into that situation, but a very generous carrot. And that's what I mean, again, that's what he did in his Middle East trip to Saudi Arabia and Qatar and to the Emirates. He said, look, I want the Middle East to be thriving. I mean, I want Rivieras everywhere in the Middle East. I'm sick and tired of war. I'm sick and tired of regime change and assassinations and all. Let's just have you guys, let's just, Emiratize this place. Dubai the entire place. Dubai eyes, Abu Dhabi eyes, the entire place. I mean, that's very much what Mohammed bin Salman's been doing in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, Riyadh. I mean, he's turning them into Vegases. I mean, they're incredible. Again, with Islamic moral codes as well. It's an archeo-future structure. I love it. It's right up my alley. So Trump seems to he's not giving up on that, and so he remains he's giving his flexible calendar in order to bring you in, and then if you mess up, then he's going to crack down on you again. So it seems to be it's a push-pull. RoboGuy, thank you so much for the gift, RoboGuy. Very kind. I'm convinced nobody's going to prison. Everything the swamp did, activists, judges, there'll be no accountability. Pam Bondi's absolutely worthless. Dan and Cash are compromised. What do we do without vigilante? What do we do without vigilante justice? A civil war, too. It's demoralizing. I hear you, Robo. I hear you. And I have to admit, I'm starting to feel that, too. I do. I have to admit it. On the indictment side of things, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything. They could be interrelated. I think it was Barnes who was talking about that. They could be interrelated. You have to keep the Epstein files closed, because you got to blame Iran on trying to kill Trump and not Ukraine, and Epstein's connections. I don't know, with the Mossad and all this sort of stuff. I mean, so there may be some very real connections there with what's going to be revealed in those classified docs is going to contradict the war propaganda that the neocons are pushing. And Trump can't contradict that propaganda without jeopardizing the passage of his big, beautiful bill, which, of course, we've all stopped talking about. That's what happens when we start looking 10,000 miles away. We stop talking about our own country. This is what just absolutely incenses, rightly, Tucker Carlson. Why the hell are our senators more concerned about what's happening in, Tehran than what's happening in Toledo? What the hell? So I'm with you. I'm feeling it too. I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to give her some more time, but 6 months now, 6 months and not a single indictment. She gave us the promise of the Epstein files, and then we got a notebook gate. That was just a joke. We have tens of thousands of files from the court cases that have been tried with Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, for heaven's sakes, this tiny little notebook. So anyway, we'll have to see, RoboGuy. But don't despair. Don't despair. If anything, I mean, we saw a miracle on J13 in Butler, Pennsylvania. So there are bigger forces working here, and you just put trust in that. But I'm with you in terms of discouragement when it comes to Pam, Dan, and Cash. I am very, very discouraged by the total lack. Now, again, we've heard some insiders saying it's coming, but you can only say that for so long before we just say, yeah, right. Cry wolf more. All right, Benton, there are 4 options available to the president to destroy Iran's atomic fission bomb capabilities. Some are riskier than others. In all that is said, it would be better to allow Israel to complete the job. In all that said, would it be better, to allow Israel to complete the job? An Israeli C-147 could carry the ordnance to destroy bunker containing the atomic fission bomb. The bunker buster has not been tested in combat conditions. Good point on that, Benton. It's actually right. And again, 9 times out of 10, we want to get involved in these wars to test out some new tech on the field. That's how they get away with it in astropolitics, right? The politics of satellites, space stations. You're not allowed to use military weaponry and be engaged in military activity in outer space. So they test out their space weapons by blowing up satellites, saying that they're no longer useful or they're broken or whatever. And so they find some humanitarian excuse to actually try out some of their weapons. So that's what I'm hoping we could do with bunker busters, find some humanitarian way of being able to do it. But otherwise, it's unfortunately the field of war. I'm with Bannon on this. Trump is going to take the position he thinks we need to take here on it, but I tend to be with Bannon on it. I think this is something Israel should finish. It started it. Israel needs to finish this. That is not a precedent we want to establish, where an allied country starts a war that expects then us to come in and finish it for them. That is not a precedent we want to set. Yes, we will provide, because our militaries are so intertwined. Yes, we will provide defensive cover. We will help them defend themselves, but we will not be offensive against Iran. That's the way I think we need to approach this. The historical connections. This is like Soleimani, or this is like ISIS. This is like taking out al-Baghdadi or whatever. No, I'm sorry. I don't see that, because I do not see how we can take out their nuclear program deep under the earth with a bunker buster and not have them declare war on us. I mean, we can take out a general, but we cannot take out their entire nuclear capabilities without them declaring war on us. So then they will respond. They did not. They really were not able to respond much with the killing of Soleimani. You remember, if I recall, Trump smiled and said, "I know you have to respond. You just better miss." I guess he could pull the same thing here, but again, they're not seeing an existential survival issue with the death of Soleimani, whereas they are seeing, I think, an existential survival issue, at least the Iranian regime, when it comes to taking out their nuclear weapon with a bunker buster at that level. So I think they're going to respond. And if that's the case, and I think we have to presume they're going to respond, that means we have to take out their capability of responding, which means basically wiping out the Iranian the Iranian Republican Guard. It means basically wiping out the Iranian military. And that's a full declaration of war. But maybe now you've just so crippled them that they can't respond. But this is a war with a nation. This isn't a war with a group, ISIS. I don't want to play it down that we're working together with Putin to take out. If nobody liked ISIS, the Shiites hated ISIS. More moderate Sunnis hated ISIS. ISIS were Sunni supremacists. Nobody liked them. So that was easier. And then targeted sort of assassinations, where he said, this is a different animal. This is a network strike over a sovereign nation that would be an absolute declaration of war. And that means we get dragged into it. It's just bottom line. And nobody in MAGA wants that. Nobody. So this is, and again, this is I mean, if you're going to say, well, Iran can have a nuclear weapon, I get you. But I mean, if you're going to go there, then that means you have the potential of destroying the entire coalition. Bismo Funyuns, what would you say globally is our biggest win and biggest setback this year at this point? What is coming up globally? God bless. All right. Well, people might laugh at this, but I think, politically speaking, the biggest win was our rapprochement, and at least in terms of diplomatic relations with Russia. I think that was the biggest win. That was Trump acknowledging we are in a multipolar world. Russia isn't the new Iran. Russia isn't a peripheral country that we're going to isolate. The civilized world is going to isolate, the way we're hearing Biden talk or all the leaders in the EU talk, these idiots. No, Russia oversees the largest land mass on the planet. Russia is Eurasia. Russia is a major planetary power that has a hegemon that it is going to protect, a Eurasian region that it will protect, and has aligned itself with another massive civilizational hegemon called China. And together they can do a lot of damage. So this notion that we were this unipolar power, basically telling the rest of the world how to live, and that we can basically Iranize or Venezuelaize everybody else who doesn't go along with us, was just pure kabuki theater. It wasn't even remotely in the realm of reality. And when Trump got into power and said, all right, Vlad, let's chat. I love how he calls him Vlad. Vlad, let's chat. It's almost like he's calling Brad, let's chat. Old buddies. The moment then they had their first meeting involved peace negotiations regarding Ukraine. Ukraine wasn't even invited. To me, that was just, again, that was great power politics working out. There are, as Sam Huntington theorized, there would be core nations, civilizational states around which there would be these satellite nations in their hegemons, in their spheres. And if there's a problem with satellite nations, it's the core states that would have to work out diplomatic solutions to that, either within in their inner sphere of influence with those satellite states, or intra core states working together in overlapping spheres. So that to me was huge. Obviously, I mean, I put it at a close second. It looks like the trade deals that we're seeing with Britain, and one that apparently now with China. Those are going to be huge. That's important. Those bilateral trade agreements. Just again, it's a mercantilistic civilizational world. The old globalist order is just basically dead at this point. And the neocons, they want their war. They want something that's going to reignite NATO, which was the armed forces of the unipolar liberal globalist order. Biggest setback is going to have right now for me is it's going to have to be this. The possibility of getting the United States sucked up into a war with Iran. That would be a massive setback for all the reasons I think the Dove crowd is saying. I do think it is going to be, at the very least, it's going to strain the MAGA coalition. It's going to cause a lot of working class people to stay home in the midterms. Why the hell vote for anyone? They're all the same. They're not going to vote for anyone, but that'll give Democrats the edge. And I think it's going to hurt Trump's popularity, as all foreign wars eventually do. So I think that's a huge setback. So I would put that one. Oh, and what is coming up globally? Oh my! I mean, we're gonna have to look at how G7 works with BRICS. That's gonna be fascinating to me. G7 is doing their best. Trump particularly, I think he's doing his best to create some tension inside BRICS, and to frustrate that economic bloc. I don't think he'll be successful. I think BRICS sees itself as a very important hedge against America. I would keep an eye too on, honestly, on what happens with the Bitcoin reserve. If Trump if the Treasury, I should say, buys up a bunch of Bitcoin, the price goes through the roof, and all of a sudden you begin to see this $1 trillion asset hit levels we never imagined, and that might be the rocket fuel that shoots it beyond anything we've ever seen. Then you would see more and more nations getting involved in that. And then that'd be interesting when you begin to see, okay, now we've got an actual sovereign currency where no central bank has power over it. And then that can be used now in a civilizationalist world as sort of your lingua franca currency. I would keep an eye on that. And obviously AI concurrently with that, the way AI is restructuring not just jobs and economy, but the way it's restructuring geopolitics in this literally AI arms race that we're engaged in. So yeah, there's a lot going on, no question. Oh, Micah is just saying we got breaking news. 4 individuals have pled guilty to a $550 million USAID fraud scheme. God bless Musk and God bless Doge. God bless Data Republican, our good friend. We have to have Data Republican on the show sometime. She's wonderful for all of your amazing work in uncovering USAID. That is a gift that's going to keep on giving. So breaking, 4 individuals have pled guilty to a $550 million USAID fraud scheme. Davros, we must attack Iran and do a regime change, or else New York City will be nuked. The most dangerous thing is that country having WMDs. How could people fall for the same dung? Shall we use the King James version again? Can't we even have 5 years without a war? I'm with you, Davros. I mean, that's the dove. I hate that term though, dove, but that's the non-interventionist view. People are calling it the isolationist view. I do not like that. That's not because that term is used purposely as a pejorative. It's not isolationist. It's not falling for the same crap we have to fall for every few years. I mean, you're actually being you're underselling it there, Davros. We have been, since 1991, we have been at war somewhere in the world 2 of every 3 years. 66% of the last 30 years, we've been at war somewhere, some way. Yeah, Micah wants to. So I am with you, Davros. I can't believe people would fall for this. I'm with you on that. But we do. So that's why we're here. We're here to kind of remind people, look, okay, that's the argument. Maybe they are right this time. Maybe they're right, but a very strong argument can be made that they're not. Now, the situation we're in is Israel's already attacked. This is already a hot war. The question is whether or not we get involved. What I have to say I'm pissed at is I would love to see Trump and our leadership say, all right, we wish Israel well. We'll provide defensive measures because we're allies, but we're not getting in it. We're not getting. He must have, again, this strategic ambiguity must be playing into something there. He's also being held hostage by the Senate Republicans who I think are telling him, and that's what I think you were getting from a lot of these guys. Oh, we're not voting for this bill. We're not voting for this bill the way it is. There's no way I'm voting for this bill. And so I think they're holding him hostage in order to make sure the stocks go up for Lockheed Martin and all their military industrial complex allies. Yeah. Mike has got a Fox News report, quick clip on these 4 individuals who just pled guilty to a $550 million USAID fraud scheme. That's our tax dollars.
People are pleading guilty, all part of a $500 million bribery scandal involving USAID. Mike Emanuel has the story from Washington.
Bill, good morning. The scheme involving cash, NBA tickets, and a country club wedding. According to the Justice Department, USAID official Roderick Watson sold his influence starting back in 2013. Contractors Walter Barnes and Daryl Britt funneled payoffs through subcontractor Paul Young to hide their tracks. It doesn't end there. Barnes's company, working in conjunction with another firm, kept receiving federal funds. $5,000 for human resources consulting late last year. And then later, after suing the government, a contract worth up to $800 million. Matthew R. Galliotti, head of the Justice Department's criminal division, saying, quote, their scheme violated the public trust by corrupting the federal government's procurement process. Anybody who cares about good and effective government should be concerned about the waste, fraud, and abuse in government agencies, including USAID. Cutting waste, fraud, and abuse has been a big focus on Capitol Hill across government, a major priority for House Speaker Mike Johnson. The U.S. Agency for International Development has been a target for those looking to trim government spending, with some suggesting the agency funneled taxpayer dollars into ideological projects.
Some suggesting. Some suggest. You mean, in other words, like the Democrat National Committee that's going bankrupt as we speak? Absolutely glorious stuff. Thank you for that, Micah. Good breaking news there. TM series, model number 5, Dr. Turley putting in the work today to train and increase the efficiency of the brain in my biceps. Looking good, man. ROT, looking good. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's very important that we're able to map out all the different views. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information, but it's actually not that hard. It's just, yeah, you just need one place to come and get it. So hopefully you smack that bell and subscribe button and you're a part of this channel as a regular. We love to have you. As you can see, we're troublemakers here. We love featuring all of our great Turley talkers. Davros, how can we be sure the Fox News polls are bad, but the Rasmussen polls are good? It feels like Trump et al. Only accept favorable polls. Can we get a show just demonstrating which polls are accurate, which ones have been wrong? Sure, but I've done that a bit, Davros, in the sense that sure, of course, Trump is only going to love good polls and he's going to despise the bad polls. So it comes down to your track record. Bottom line, the proof is in the pudding. You could give me all the methodology to your blue in the face. Bottom line, it comes down to your track record. How accurate have you been? So we tend to go with, I always go with those pollsters that demonstrated how good they were in 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. So we have Rich Barris, who's a good friend of this channel. Rich is the best. He got the single most accurate polling, and he's talked about Trump being I think he has him in the low 50s. Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, good friend. He, as you saw, had him at 56. Atlas Intel. Atlas Intel had a really weird one that came out. It was sort of, people are calling it sort of the Ann Seltzer. I should take that away. I actually meant Daily. Was it Daily Intel? But they're also very high up there. Quantum Insights, very high up there. Trafalgar, very, very high up there. So we go with them. If it was just this total outlier, Patriot polling or something like that, I wouldn't give you the time of day to it. It's going to have to be somebody whose polling is within the margin of error in every most elections. I'll give them Trafalgar. I think missed, for example, 2022, as did many pollsters. It just because the people said they were going to come out didn't. It was just when we had low prop to no prop voters just simply not coming out in 2022. But in 2024, these are guys who nailed it. So I'm going apples to apples here. They're using the same methodology, same samples, same weighting systems, and so forth. And if they were within the margin of error, then I'm going to presume they're within the margin of error now. And that's why I like to see, I don't like just one poll. I like to see another one. Again, if Rasmussen only had that 56%, given that Newsmax featured that. I figure, all right, that's newsworthy. That's good. But generally speaking, if that's all I saw, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look for another poll among these more reputable firms that that corroborates that. And if it does, then boom, there. Fox, unfortunately, misses the mark more times than it gets it. And so they could be right sometimes. A broken clock can be right twice a day, but generally Fox News polling is just pathetic. Robo Guy, I'm sorry, it's just while Trump is doing great, that's one area I don't think is being delivered. And if no traitors are arrested, it's only going to get worse. I'm with you, Robo Guy. I get it. If there's no accountability at the level of the swamp, then the swamp is going to continue to be the swamp. There's no deterrence for them for them in their antics. So if you can get away with all this diabolical behavior that helps you politically, and there's no consequences, of course they're going to keep doing it. I'm with you 1,000%. Like I said, I'm pretty upset by it too. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Rich, Dr. Steve, with so many unknown foreign nationals, potentially Iranians and Chinese, and with the Chinese owning land all around our military bases, wouldn't it be very easy to do a drone attack on key American assets, much like the Ukraine army did to Russia? Yeah, Rich, absolutely. This is where open borders is the curse that manifests itself. You reap what you sow, and we sowed a lot of foreign nationals coming in through the southern border. Yep, and just our lax immigration policies. And you're right. Now you would hope that there was some national security apparatus to detect that. But like what we saw with all those crazy drone flights in New Jersey, remember that several months back during, I think it was during the interim after the election and before inauguration. But it's just, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that open border can come back to haunt us big time. Richard, Dr. Steve, your thoughts on the so-called rift between Trump and Tulsi? Does not exist, apparently. Does not exist. It is all neocons trying to get rid of Tulsi. Trump has confirmed and Tulsi has confirmed they are 100% on the same page. TM, Dr. Sturley, you just said it 20 minutes in. What happened to all the tariffs? So the tariff deadline, so Trump put the tariffs on hold as negotiations, good faith negotiations are happening. So if I recall, the deadline is July the 8th, right? It was a 90-day suspension in order to work out all the details with Scott Besant's team. And we'll find out July 8th. But if anybody who did not come to an agreement by July 8th, tariffs kick right back in again. Double check on that. But if I recall, it's July 8th. The original rock dog, Dr. Steve, are the outcomes with Iran and Ukraine tied together? If Trump gets Iran to give up nukes for releasing sanctions and signs the Abraham Accords, do you see the Ukrainian debacle ending soon after favorable to the United States, Russia, and EU? It's not gonna work out favorably for the EU or the U.S. Trump is basically saying, I just want people to stop dying and we'll be good to go with that. The EU wanted to push Russian troops back to pre-February 2022 borders. It's just not going to happen. I mean, Russia made it clear. No, I mean, those 5 regions have all been permanently annexed. It's not going to happen. They're a part of the Russian Federation. We're done. It's not even an issue. And, we've got the military to back that up and you don't. So that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, in the end, Vladimir Putin offered to negotiate a peace between Iran and Israel because Putin has very, very good relations with both Iran and Israel. Again, Russian foreign diplomacy, Russian international relations is an art form. They're brilliant at it. They're so good. It's just the neocons that they can't get along with in the end because neocons refuse to get along with them. But other than that, 90% of the world's population, they get along with Russia. That's what, again, a lot of people don't understand. That's Putin talking points. That's pro-Russian propaganda. It's just a fact. Look it up. It's just a fact. And so Putin offered to mediate. Trump publicly said, I told Vlad, you've got your own problem. Don't worry. But hopefully he is. I'm hoping behind the scenes he's working at it. In the end, the situation with Ukraine will resolve when Russia says so. And, as far as Russia's concerned, just the more Ukraine drags this out and NATO dragged this out, just the more territory they take. They're tough. I mean, these guys, they can handle casualties in a war. They are tough. Even Trump has said that. You don't get tougher fighters than Russians and Chechens and all that. So, I mean, they can handle it, and they can go as long as you want them to go. They are used to protracted long wars. Their population is. So I just think that's going to end when Vladimir says so. If Vladimir can negotiate a peace between Iran and Israel in such a way that the United States can help to negotiate a peace at the same time with Ukraine, that all parties are happy with. Ukraine just has to do whatever the United States tells it to do. And I would basically leave Europe out of it at this point. They're just spectators anyway. Yeah, I that's a possibility. So but I love the way you think. You're thinking in terms of the geopolitical chessboard. That's where, and there's multiple players on it. Simple logic. I think the reaction by most content creators all over all this, was extremely ridiculous. Not saying I support boots on the ground, but it was incredible how many of them forgot or ignored Trump's red line in Iran. Yet, so that is the argument, simple logic. You got it. And that's why I thought it was very important to present that position. You know what? I don't even think when I look back at the way I present, I don't even think I pointed out that, yes, for 20 years, he's been saying Iran cannot have a nuke. Iran cannot have a nuke. And that this is in line with his Jacksonian foreign policy from Trump 1.0, where, he did take out Soleimani. He did bomb ISIS into oblivion. He took out al-Baghdadi. So he was very confrontational with Kim Jong-un. And this fits in with that. So that's what they're saying. This fits in with that. So that is the argument. The argument is, even, yes, if he goes in, it's not going to be as bad as the Doves would have it, for lack of a better term. I just don't know what other, I have to think in terms of a category. So I just, that's my brain. If anyone wants to suggest a different nomenclature, please do. But the Doves may be overreacting. And I think the Doves are overreacting just in the end because they don't buy it. They honestly, you heard one of our previous contributors point this out. They don't buy it. They don't buy this notion of nukes. They don't buy it any more than they buy WMDs. They just don't buy it. And they think the pretext for this strike is not nukes, WMDs, or anything like that. No, it's for neocons to have the kind of power and influence in the region, in one of the most wealthy, oil-rich regions of the world, that is indisputed and unmatched. Israel's our proxy for that. Israel wants that. We want that. Neocons want that. And it does risk harming Trump politically here at home. Thus far, he's been threading the needle. So, great point, simple logic. Davros, Dr. Turley, you've laid out the different perspectives. Hawk, turtle, dove, turtle. I like that. Turtle on the war with Iran. Which is your perspective? Yeah, I'm kind of I'm a blend of them all. That's the problem of being descriptive here. So I share absolutely the concerns of the Doves. I share those concerns overwhelmingly. And I think they've been very brave in coming out against this war when Iran is so unpopular for Americans. Yeah, we have to remember Americans hate Iran. Bottom line, let's be blunt. We are still sore from what they did 46 years ago, from the 79 hostage crisis, when they humiliated us on the international stage. We're still sore at that. We despise any nation that does their own form of political rallies that involves the chant "Death to America, Death to America." And for them, politically, they're kind of stupid because, you could say whatever you want after you get the nuke, not before. So I get it. When you push back against striking Iran, yeah, you're inviting some very strong anti-Iranian sentiment that's very visceral, particularly among the older crowd, those of us who remember those days. I was a kid, but I remember it. I remember the news having every day, 200 and whatever for when the hostage taking, and then I remember on the day of Trump's or Reagan's, how's that for Freudian? Reagan's inauguration, they were released, and the interviews that came afterward, and all that sort of stuff. I just found the whole thing harrowing and fascinating. So for those of us who kind of lived through that, I have to say, I just think the Doves have been very brave in taking a stand against this, because I think they knew they were going to get a lot of pushback, far more than you would get even from Ukraine. We got a lot of pushback. I mean, to me, that was a very cut and dry situation where NATO was now ready to arm Ukraine to the teeth and possibly get involved in this war, and they were using blatant lies as the pretext for that. Whereas this, I do see this as a bit more nuanced, ironically, where I think the Doves have a great point. Certainly the geopolitical theorists definitely have a great point. I do think Israel's been suffering a bit from the depletion of its escalation dominance. It's been stuck and mired in a war much longer. And remember, it's used to the 6-day war. I mean, it's 6 days war. It's used to very quick sort of shock and awe fighting tactics, and that's not working. And so I could see why they want to drag the United States in. And I can see that if it is true, Iran is on its way of obtaining a nuclear weapon. It's hard for me to believe it because of just the crying wolf up to this point. But if it's true, and President Trump believes it's true, and J.D. Vance is coming out and saying, yes, it's true. If that's the case, do we want this nation chanting death to America to have a nuke? Well, everyone's saying no. So I mean, for me, in the end, if Trump strikes, takes out the nukes, and he's able to prevent any further escalation, I think he's going to be heralded as a hero. But I just don't know quite how you do that. I don't know how you strike without further escalation. Again, with Russia, for me, you were dealing with a power that could wipe us off the face of the earth. This was insane for NATO to get involved. Whereas this, it's more tactical. And I do want to see the MAGA coalition continue to thrive. I don't want it dismantled. I don't want it collapsing because the working class finally abandons us and says, so it doesn't matter who we put in. If we put in a Democrat or Republican, they're all pro-war. They're all hawks. So that's my concern there. But I can see the good in all. But if you ask me, I hope Trump does not strike. I hope Israel. I like Steve Bannon's view. Take him out. Go ahead. There's no love lost between the United States and Iran, and that's coming from somebody, in fairness, who has a deep admiration and appreciation for the Shiite tradition. I find the Shiite Islamic tradition to be a very beautiful, very, very aesthetically rich, and even ironically, their theocratic thinking has a lot of nuance to it. I've read a bit of Ayatollah Khamenei's political theology, and I just found it very interesting, very fascinating. Obviously, I'm not an Eastern Orthodox, happily so. I'm not a proponent of it, but I would have loved to have seen sort of like a renewed, revived Iran that could still hold to its Shiite traditions, but become more a part of the international community, as it were, and drop the death to America stuff. I know the strategic. I understand the strategic significance of it in the region, particularly among the proxies. I get it. It's connected with death to Israel as well. I get it. But, and I may be naive, but I would have loved to have seen that. I don't know what's going to happen, though, if that's ever going to be a possibility. So that said, just politically realist here, there's no love lost between the United States and Iran. If Israel wants to wipe them out, go for it. I mean, most Americans, I'm for right or for wrong, I'm just going to say go for it. But I just think we need to stay out of it. I do. I think we need to stay out of it. And hopefully Israel finishing the job gives the neocons bloodthirst, satisfy the neocons bloodthirst. They'll vote for the BBB, and we can just move on and continue making America great again. But then again, now you're dealing with stability, possibility of regime change, retribution. It just never ends. So that's why I loved what Trump did with Syria, bringing Syria back into the family of nations, as it were, in his trip to Riyadh and as part of Qatar and the Emirates. Just let's all make deals. Let's make the world incredibly prosperous, and let's just stop the fighting. Let's just stop, and everybody's got a place in it, and you can all compete over who's richer. How's that for a fun competition? So there you go. I hope I didn't fudge. BW, Dr. Steve, I hope Trump is just posturing. I'm already worried that he hasn't given people enough for the midterms. Yeah, I'm with you, BW. He's got to continue. I mean, he's delivered on the border in terms of security. He is delivering, I think, very well with the mass deportations. That's going very, very well. Very high marks among immigrants, interestingly enough, and Latinos. He's got to keep delivering on the economy, and this war in Iran could tank our economy with just a massive spike in energy. So he's got to work on that. And so that's what he's got to contain and watch out for, without letting them know without letting them know they've got him, with that. He's not going to attack us because he knows that's going to raise prices. So he's got to get that done. The war on woke, I think, has been going very, very well for us. We saw it with the Supreme Court decision the other day, allowing for the Tennessee ban on sex surgeries for minors, sex change surgeries for minors. So he's doing well. He's doing well. Again, the polls show it, and the Republicans are generally doing well. And we're seeing that with the voter registration discrepancies. We're over 1 million now. Higher voter registration, Republican voter registrations over Democrats across the country. That's pretty stunning. That's pretty awesome. Democrats are bankrupt. DNC's, they're not filing for bankruptcy, but they're basically taking out massive loans because they don't have money. And whereas Trump is raking in the money, and the RNC is fully funded. So all of that tells me that the Democrats are just kind of imploding right now, and thank God, because with this craziness that's happening. And like you're saying, when you're talking about the posturing, that is part of that strategic ambiguity. So we'll see. We'll find out, obviously, in the next few weeks. But I'm with you, BW. I'm a little myself. Richard, Dr. Turley, is it not true we have plenty of oil in our country? Just needs to be drilled instead of relying on the Middle East. It does, but that's a process. It's got to be refined and so forth. We're just not there yet. We're just not there. Thank you to Joe Biden. We should have been, but we're not. We're getting there. And I'm sure Trump is checking out the status that we have on our oil in terms of being able to be 100% oil independent, which I believe is a national security issue. We should not be dependent on OPEC. again, the advantage you have if you're trading oil is it lowers the price for everybody. So all well, that's the advantage consumers have, not the oil exporters have. They see their money going down, but it's an ability to be able, if you're networking with other oil producing countries like OPEC, you're able to drive costs way down. You're able to negotiate with them to ratchet up their drilling while yours is being adjusted and so forth. So they're just hedges for whatever could go wrong in your own domestic oil drilling. But I'm with you. I mean, for times like this is when energy independence is absolutely a national security issue, as it always is. But this just brings it to the fore. Will O'Toole, Dr. Steve, the conservative MAGA right, abhors violence unless it is self-defense. True. Very well put. Thus, do you have any polls on how Americans feel about using the military to clean out illegals, Antifa, BLM, Marxists who are driving the insurrection, not just in LA, but in other blue states and cities? In other words, is Trump being overwhelmingly supported by Americans in this matter? Will, I do have some polls. Let's see. It is people generally are very supportive of it. Let's see. Let's see if I've got this one. This might work. All right. So the polls that came out for Trump himself after he ordered the military intervention. So this is after he federalized the National Guard in California, and after he sent in the Marine, or after he gave the order to send in the Marines, was 54%. That's Rasmussen. Rich Barris has him at 53%. Had him at 53%. So this was just this would have been last Monday. When did I'm losing my chronology here. Now I have stats on National Guard, and I'm looking for that. Looking. Tax runs. I don't know where it is. I could find it if you gave me time. Here we go. This might be it. Let's see. Last look. That's what I was looking for. All right, thank you guys for your patience. So, insider advantage, and that was also the polling that I was trying to find. I got them with the Atlas Intel. I got them mixed up. Insider advantage is giving Trump a +20 for sending in the troops. +20. So I don't have why don't I have the numbers? I just have the +20. So it's got to be a 60-40. Say 55-30 60-40, yeah, around that. But 55-35, something akin to that, then with some undecided. But yep, people are overwhelmingly supportive of it. We generally remember there's been studies. There was a Princeton study that found that riots tend to turn the country to the right. Riots, red pill. We talked about that before. And we just have data on that found that regions, counties that are in closest proximity to the place, usually an urban area of the riots, they tend to, in the next elections, go noticeably several points to the right. Democrats lose just at least support, if not elections, generally speaking, in those counties that are closest in proximity to where the riot took place. So that's what we seem to be seeing. I wish I had actual numbers for you, but it was a plus 20 for Trump on the insider advantage. So you might want to check it out on X, see if you can find the actual numbers. Ocean breeze salty. Love that. What happened to America First? Just like that Epstein files and Fort Knox audit were never spoken of again. You're right. I can't argue with you, man. I can't argue. This is the problem. This is the problem when all of a sudden all the headlines get dominated by what's happening 10,000 miles away. Oh, but nukes, WMDs. I'm with you. And I think this is one of the things that influencers like Tucker and Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon and Robert Barnes and Rich Barrett, they're all coming out and basically saying, guys, we're getting played again. These are neocons. These are executives at Fox. This is not, these are stockholders, Lockheed Martin. This is not America First. This is not us. And Trump is getting sucked up into that. And many argue they're holding the big, beautiful bill as hostage until he does something that they want in the Middle East to give them more power and money. That's basically the gist of it. So I'm with you, Ocean Breeze Salty. This is what a lot of people were upset with Pam. A lot of people were upset with the way Doge is kind of seems to have petered out a little bit. So the swamp has a way of just you think you're defeating it, and then all of a sudden it has a way of just rising up again. So I'm with you. I'm not pessimistic about it, but it's frustrating for sure. Again, we still have 3.5 years to go. We're only 6 months into this. So, but I'm with you. Well said. That was well said. Polite, rude guy. I love that. I stand with Israel, Trump 2028. There you go. Excellent. I love the Texas flag there too. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, in the end, I mean, this is where I don't like the interventionists calling the doves. I don't like the hawks calling the doves like pro-Iranian sympathizers. They're not. There's no love lost for Iran. What they're very nervous about is getting dragged into a war that ends up destroying in the end the America First movement. They're very, very concerned with that. That said, I think the vast majority, I mean, if you were to ask who do you want to win in a conflict, nobody else fights. It's Iran versus Israel. The vast majority of Americans are going to want Israel. Of course, they're not going to want Iran. Iran has no love lost here, no question. So yeah, absolutely, stand with Israel, as do many MAGA folk. It's that's why I thought it was important to represent all sides. TM Series, Dr. Turley. Why are there so many New York City mayoral race commercials on TV this far away in New Jersey? Wow, come on, dude. You're in the tri-state. Pennsylvania is 20 miles west of here. What does Pennsylvania have to do with that? New York City mayoral race commercials. Yeah. Well, but because it's old school and you just get on the broadcasting range, and the broadcasting range tends to be multiple state. I see it all the time. We're in Delaware, northern Delaware, and we get all Pennsylvania's ads. So I always know what's going on in the Pennsylvania. That's how I knew Bob Casey was running as a Trumpian MAGA supporter. He was doing he knew he was losing the working class, and he was losing them big time to McCormick. And so he was running as a Trump supporter, even though he would have voted against Trump every step of the way. So anyway, that's one of the perks, I guess, you get from it. Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. Flatten foes, walk away, and do not nation build. It's up to them to rebuild their nation in a non-antagonistic form. Rinse and repeat till they learn. Let them hate so long as they fear. Dude, Kevin, that's pretty freaking awesome. I like that. Just your prose, they flow, man. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. I don't know if you put that in a Word doc before you wrote that. But hold on to that. Flatten foes, walk away, do not nation build. It's up to them to rebuild their nation in a non-antagonistic form. Rinse and repeat till they learn. Let them hate so long as they fear. Brilliant. That's Kevin. That's probably I'd say that's probably my position in a nutshell. It's probably my position in a nutshell when all said and done. I guess so. I mean, if the United States is going to hit so freaking hard, it's just like you say, just flatten them. I hate saying this because I don't like war. I honestly don't. I'd rather see wealth created and competition wealth rather than war. But yeah, if we're going to go into it, flatten them. There's no question. And let them hate so long as they fear. Joe Bro, why do so many people dismiss or ignore Israel's repeated operations against Iran's nuclear program over the decades and still act as if Israel has been exaggerating or lying about the threat of an Iran nuke? So bottom line, Joe, it's not Israel per se. It could be. It could be some geopolitical theorists like Jeffrey Sachs have no love for Israel, what he considers to be very much Israel's neocon-like leadership, particularly among the Likud and Bibi Netanyahu. That said, in the end, I think it's a legitimization crisis forged during the Bush era, post 2002, where many people feel like they were sold a bill of goods, and the very institutions, experts, strategists that told us about the inevitability of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq are the same ones telling us about Iran's nuclear capability. In the end, it's just it's a total lack of trust in the institutions that are reporting the information. And when delegitimization happens, it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And we talk about a lot on this channel, as you know. And when the Democrats are in power, they delegitimize. And that's why I tell people, don't worry. I mean, they're only going to be able to do so much because, especially after COVID, they're not going to be able to do that again because they don't have the same kind of legitimacy that provides that awakens the trust and confidence that provides the social capital that enables them to do it. It's the same thing here. It's the Republicans. It was the neocons that got us into trouble in Iraq. And they just, I think our population is very, very hesitant to trust claims about weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East ever again, primarily coming from those very same institutional voices. Now, like you said, but they're coming from Israel. What's the big deal? Well, again, there is the argument, like John Mearsheimer, that Israel obviously has a vested interest of getting the United States involved in this war because we can reestablish this escalation dominance that Israel seems to have lost. So it is complicated in that sense. I wish things could be really straightforward. I'm not trying to be condescending. I mean it. I wish things could be very, very straightforward, but they're not. I know when I took the position that Vladimir Putin had invaded Ukraine precisely because of NATO and NATO's incursion towards the east, and coming to Russia's borders and basically arming Western Ukrainian troops to fight the Donbass separatists and in effect making Ukraine a de facto NATO nation. When I made that argument, to me it was just very straightforward. But I recognize people just had very different ideas of it. And so what you try to do again is just do your research and be very settled on where you stand on that issue and why you stand. You know what you believe, why you believe it, and then make the best case for it, and see if you can identify some what are they called? If there's a term for this actually in marketing, believe it or not. There's something beliefs. Oh, I'm forgetting about it. I'll think about it. But see if you can find where these hindering beliefs come in, and see how you can knock down the hindering beliefs. That's sort of the strategy for how to persuade someone. You could call it a false belief, something akin to that, where, oh, no, I don't buy that. And we say, well, but here's why you ought to buy it. And then you have to stretch it, and you have to take into consideration trust and confidence is at an all-time low today, especially when it comes to our institutional elites. So there you go. Joe Bro, what I'm addressing is people like Jon Stewart, making fun of Netanyahu for repeatedly claiming, hey, Micah, get up with it. This would have helped me in my answer. But making fun of Netanyahu for repeatedly claiming that Iran is on the verge of weapon decades ago with no reference to continued operation, dismantle, and reset. Oh, he just had, okay, to reset the program. Got it. Okay, so that's very good, Joe. I appreciate that. So that's very good. So that would be addressing sort of this false belief kind of idea of, I presented that. I put that in my presentation. He's been saying this since the 1990s. And you'd say, yes, he has, because they've dismantled it and remantled it, as it were. I like how you put it. Dismantled and reset it over and over and over again. And now they're at a point where now we actually have even Marco Rubio saying they've got the 60% enrichment, and then 60% is basically 99%, right? If you get getting to the 60% is a really, really hard thing. The other 40% is like nothing. And they hit 60%. So, you could bring that in, because we do trust Marco Rubio. We do trust JD Vance. And I have been very impressed with, and I've seen a lot of those who do not want intervention also very impressed with how JD Vance has been coming in and interacting with the social media crowd, the influencer crowd, particularly on X. He tried to do it on Blue Sky. Right, the liberal crybaby woke alternative to X that's basically going bankrupt as we speak. He tried to do it there, and he got his account, I think, suspended within minutes. It's just very, very funny. But yeah, so that would be Jon Stewart kind of playing to his liberal crowd that talk about going through a stage of radical delegitimacy. They don't trust anything now coming from the government. Or in this case, Netanyahu. So there you go. But what you just did there is a perfect example of kind of breaking down it's called a false belief. Somebody says, I don't buy that. They put up a false belief. And then you say, okay, yes, what you're saying is right, but you're missing this, that they've dismantled and reset, and now they're almost there. And you do trust Rubio, JD, Trump. Well, they're saying it's there. They've got the intel, and it's there. And if you trust them, this isn't Lindsey Graham, it's them. And Lindsey Graham's going off doing it. Forget him. Don't worry about him. He's a clown. He means nothing. So that would be a very good rhetorical way of doing it. Cody, why can't everyone just calm down and see how things work out with Iran and Israel instead of getting all up in arms, denouncing Trump, all this sort of stuff? Give Trump a chance. This isn't his first go around. Well said, Cody. And I think you're right. I think most of the frenzy and the hyper rhetoric, the inflated rhetoric, it's the nature of social media. It's social media. In order for you to be able to be heard, you have to exaggerate, and you can get caught into a feedback loop where exaggerations produce more exaggerations and exacerbate the whole thing. So no, I love what you said, Cody. I think trust the guy who has thus far quite successfully in his foreign policies, his Jacksonian foreign policy, used strategic ambiguity. It seems like almost always to his advantage, and it looks like we're in this a similar situation. So absolutely, Cody. Yeah, you'll notice I do try to stay away from, did Trump just start, or did Israel just start World War III and all? I tried. I mean, there was a time where Biden got us very close. And I think I had a thumbnail that said, "Is this World War III?" When he greenlit the use of attack and missiles going 200 miles inland into Russia. That's, and he's greenlighting NATO missiles being sent inland into Russia after losing the election, after Kamala lost it, in the interim period before the incumbent leaves and the new president takes office. And that was a total violation of the unspoken rule that you do not leave the incoming presidency with a mess. They did that back in 2016, by the way, and into January of 2017. They did that with this insane sort of two-state, and I'm not saying the two-state solution with Israel and the Palestinians is bad. I'm just saying it was an insane insane measure that they had passed, I thought, through the United Nations with John Kerry and so forth, that put enormous pressure on Israel. And it was something that had kind of dictated now the policy that the new administration would have to pursue. He didn't, but it was just Trump didn't, and Israel didn't. But it was just, again, they've done that. They violate norms because they think they are the norm. Leftists think they are the norm because they buy into this thing called progressive realism, where it's this notion that the world is inevitably moving, history is inevitably moving in the direction of liberalism. And it's not, but they act as if it is. And so then they have this moral superiority, and it's just absurd and all that sort of stuff. Cody Skanes, that was a great comment. Thank you for that. Simple logic. Trump is not a dove or a chicken hawk. He isn't even a bird. He's a guard dog. Whoa. I am writing that down. Trump, the guard dog. I like that. He's a guard dog. He will not attack unless attacked, unless the threat is real. Then he rips it apart. Simple logic. You have lived up to your tag name. You have. That was brilliant. It's well put. Very, very well put. John Coulter, isolationist doesn't find its opposite in waging war. Great point. Excellent. Intentional misuse because isolation has a negative connotation, so you were rejected. So that's, thank you, John. That's brilliant. That's why I like the term interventionist, non-interventionist. Again, nomenclature, terminology is important because it carries baggage with it. And so that's why I don't like it when the interventionists use the term isolationist. I don't like that term. They're not isolationists. Like the last post here we had, the last super chat we had. I mean, if you want to, I mean, if Trump is confronted by any kind of threat, he will push back. Like, remember what he said to Kim Jong-un? My button's bigger than yours, bitch. I mean, this guy does not play around. So these are not, the MAGA are not isolationists, but they are sick and tired of non-ending 2 out of every 3 year over the last 30 years wars that the United States keeps getting into. This isn't our fight, they are saying. Let it be Russia's, let it be China's. Oh, but then they get inordinate influence in that region. No, that's what that's what treaties are for. That's what bilateral negotiations are for, and alliances. And so we don't always have to fight. We don't always have to fight. And that's, by the way, where energy independence comes in as well. So, no, I'm with you. I think isolationist has negative connotations. It's certainly the way it's used in arguments. I think that's exploited. And so there you do get a bit of a straw man argument. That's why I really did try to present all. I did 3 sides, right? So I did the interventionist, non-interventionist, and the geopolitical vantage point. And when you look at them, I do think there's crossover. There's crossover. I mean, the big crossover is Iran is a troublemaker. Okay, even Russia, China, they have their issues with Iran. Russia doesn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Right? Iran's a troublemaker. Iran is problematic. Everyone agrees with that. Everyone. Where the doves and the political vantage points overlap is they don't buy the WMD's argument as much, and they both are very suspicious of Israel's ultimate ends here, which, based on the 1990s agreement that they had signed, this new path or new way, is more, this is all really, in the end, more making sure they are the uncontested dominant power in the Middle East and not Iran, not anyone else. And, if the moment Saudi Arabia starts becoming too militarily and economically powerful, then what do you know? You're going to probably see some clashes there. So they don't stand with Israel 100% in that sense. And it's important to point out the American people don't. That those days are over. Even evangelicals have less of a favorable view. I'm not saying that's for right or for wrong. I'm just being purely descriptive. So anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate words mean things, and I try to get words accurate. And you did it. You did better than I did. August 767 question is, what the Democratic Party doing a form of treason? What's your opinion on neo-Hamiltonianism? I don't know neo-Hamiltonianism. I'd have to look it up, August. My fault. Being smart is all about learning what you don't know. That's Socrates, right? Is the great quest of knowledge is learning how much you have to know. I'd have to look up neo-Hamiltonianism. So Democrats, I think, are, if they're not, they're really on the border. I mean, they really are. The Democrats live, breathe, and have their being with resentment politics. And resentment politics involves the way it's practiced in modern era. We've always had resentment politics going all the way back to the Greeks. I like your Sigma sign there. But resentment politics historically was deflecting resentment away from the political class by projecting it onto an other. And usually that was always a foreigner. So if you're Roman, your resentment by your political elite was directed towards the Carthaginians. If you were Spartan, it was projected onto the Athenians, and so on and so forth. What the Democrats are doing is they're projecting it onto fellow Americans. This is what makes them so pernicious. Trump is all about America and America first. And if you're an American, he is with you 100%. So what is he about? Let's secure the border. Let's have the biggest mass deportation program in history and get out people who are non-citizens, right? I want America first economy. I want manufacturing coming back here. I don't want to send it off to third world nations so that transnational corporations can pad their margins and CEOs can have, little 9-figure bonuses and so on. So he is all about America first, and he's all about military parades and all these things that celebrate America. They're all pre-political. Democrats try to politicize everything by having us opposed to each other, having us resent each other, having us hate each other, having us, they use race, they use gender, they use sexuality, they use culture, they use history. Everything is a weapon for them. So if that's not treason, they're right on the border of it. Cody, could Trump use eminent domain to forcibly take back farmland bought by Chinese and foreign nationals using national security as justification? That's very interesting. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure he could. They're doing something comparable at the border where they're turning the border in more or less the northern side of our southern border into more or less military zones. So anyone who crosses over is arrested immediately. It is a criminal trespass. So CNN likes to make that distinction. It's not a criminal trespass. It's a blah blah blah. When you're here illegal, well, now you are, because now you're on United States military grounds and you're a trespasser. So I'm wondering if it's a similar kind of approach they can take with that. That's a very good question. It's good strategy. Strategery, as Rush used to say. Melody, America must leave the British imperial system of forever wars and debt slavery. Ooh, a little 19th century association there. Trump will not let them pull us back into the cycle. I'm with you, Melody. In the end, I think he knows. He has uncanny political sense. He really is. I mean, he's the mandate of heaven. He was given to us as a gift. He should have been killed on J13 now almost a year ago. Notice we still don't know anything about crooks. Isn't that interesting? So I'm with you. I have full confidence. And again, if something, I'll always be honest with you guys. But I'm with you 1,000%. I think he's going to keep us out of the British imperial system and the forever wars and debt slavery that turned Britain more or less into a tiny little island. Once an empire all over the world, now a tiny island threatened constantly with internal dismemberment, as I think that's Malcolm Muggeridge put it that way. British himself. Stephen, click. Good to hear from you, my friend. Iran was the goal from the very beginning and would justify all wars from before. They knew this from the beginning. No nuke defines our generation. Yeah, I think that's what this new way plan that they came up with. Netanyahu and the neocons in the 1990s, right at the heart of the Frank Fukuyama end of history thesis when it was really at its height. I think they're still trying to implement it. But the problem's that unipolar world just doesn't exist anymore. So Russia and China are not going to stand by as passive actors. If they see a major world power, major power bloc like the United States with its proxy Israel, making significant advances in their power and influence, Russia and China will respond so as to maintain a balance of that power. So nothing happens in this new multipolar world, civilizationalist world, without other powers getting involved in some way, shape, or form. Jose, the next biggest fight proof of citizenship to be counted in 2030 census. Yeah, what say you? Yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court shot that down. They did not allow that on the. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell were they even thinking. So anyway, blue states have significantly more people accorded to them in the apportionment than actually are citizens, bottom line. And so what we're seeing is the left-2Gs leave blue states en masse and completely, teeter the electoral college map in favor of the red states, while at the same time Trump is draining those blue states. That's why he's focusing on those sanctuary cities. He's draining those blue states of millions upon millions of illegal migrants. So even if what I'm saying is, even if proof of citizenship is not on the 2030 census, even if the precedent of the Supreme Court decision stays, I think we're going to be okay. I mean, just there's not going to be enough illegal migrants to mess around with things. And again, we saw that with China. Now we're getting word from Kash Patel that he blew the roof off the FBI cover-up that China was getting illegal driver's licenses for many of their nationals who were here that should not have been voting, but that did vote in 2020 by mail. So I just don't think they're going to be able to pull that off anymore, regardless of whether or not we have a citizenship requirement. So, Stephen, if Iran has nukes, then it would we already had that. Jared, we need to remember it's Trump's job to know all his options to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. I think this is different than WMD's because the International Atomic Energy Agency routinely inspects Iran's nuclear sites. Good point, Jared. That's a very, very good point. Who are the inspectors for Iraq. I know Scott Ritter, if I recall, is one of the inspectors, and he spoke out against it, if I recall, that they did not have weapons of mass destruction. And he was shouted down by the neocons. So very good point, Jared. That's excellent data, a data point, very important data point to bring in. Polite, rude guy. This situation would not exist if 2020 was legal. That's right. That's Trump's. It always goes back to that. We wouldn't be in these positions. But then again, who knows where we would be now? Who would be in charge? But I'm with you. Alan, are we going to start seeing more of the drivers just going through the protesters blocking the streets? Florida said it is legal, but ironically, the incidents I've seen are from California. People are fed up with this crap. They are. They're done with it. Their patience is done, and they feel like they have a government that is behind them. They have a president that, God forbid, they something happens, and they are prosecuted. They have a president that's going to pardon them and so forth. So yeah, people aren't playing around anymore. Certainly not in Florida. BWO, Dr. Steve, am I wrong to feel that E-list is not the most important issue? Is that Epstein's list? Trump needs to focus on keeping us out of war, lower prices, fix economy, and prosecuting dem criminals, and the rest will fall. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So what I think the response to that would be is that the E-list is Democrat criminality or establishment criminality in its most explicit form. I think that would be the pushback. So yes, we want to prosecute Democrat criminals, but it's that Epstein list in the end that is going to be at least at a microcosmic level, sort of the beehive, the center for the whole criminal complex. That's the argument. That's the concern, that it's not being uncovered as such. But if we're staying out of war, we're getting our lower prices, fixing the economy, and if we are prosecuting explicit Democrat criminals that we're seeing, that will be very powerful. That will be an amazing presidency. So we'll have to see how it all shakes out. And with that, gang, you are awesome. I love you. God bless you. Let's all keep praying for President Trump and Vice President Vance. Let's pray for peace in the Middle East. Pray for peace between Russia and Ukraine. And let's just keep rocking and rolling in the new golden age. Love every one of you. Have a great weekend. Stick on this channel. We got lots of cool programs that we already pre-recorded that you're going to love over the weekend. God bless.